Commander Thalen sat in his observation chair aboard the Korath monitoring station, watching the long-range sensors with half-closed eyes. Another boring shift at the border. Nothing ever happened out here. The Korath Confederation had been at peace for so long that military duty felt more like waiting for something that would never come. Then the alarm chirped. Not the harsh battle station sound, just the soft ping of an unidentified contact. "Commander, we have an unknown vessel crossing into our space," his junior officer announced from the scanning station. Thalen straightened up, his antennae perking forward. Finally, something interesting. "Hail them." Standard first contact protocols. The communications array hummed to life. After a brief moment, a response came through. The voice was clear, confident, and distinctly alien to Korath ears. "This is the Terran Coalition vessel Resolute. Captain Jessica Brooks commanding. We mean no harm. We're on a routine patrol and didn't realize we'd crossed into your territory. Our apologies." Thalen relaxed slightly. At least they were friendly. "Captain Brooks, I am Commander Thalen of the Korath Confederation. Welcome to our space. We'd like to conduct a standard diplomatic scan of your vessel. It's purely routine for first contact situations. Just to understand who we're dealing with." He expected the usual dance. Most species took hours to agree to a scan. There would be negotiations, conditions, limited access to certain systems. Military vessels were always protective of their secrets. Thalen had done this dance 100 times. "Permission granted, Commander," Captain Brooks replied immediately. "Scan away. We've got nothing to hide." Thalen's antennae twitched involuntarily. That was fast. Too fast. "Captain, you understand this is a full deep scan? We'll see your weapons, your systems, your crew composition." "I understand perfectly," Brooks said, and Thalen could hear the smile in her voice. "Go ahead." Something felt off about this. Thalen glanced at his science officer, Myrn, who looked equally confused. Myrn was young but brilliant, with 3 advanced degrees in xenotechnology. If anyone could make sense of an alien vessel, it was him. "Myrn, initiate the deep scan protocols," Thalen ordered. "Yes, Commander." Myrn's long fingers moved across the control panel, activating the station's most powerful sensors. The equipment hummed as it began penetrating the human ship's hull, mapping out every corridor, every system, every power conduit. For the first few minutes, everything seemed normal. The ship was large, roughly the size of a Korath cruiser. The power signatures indicated a fusion reactor, similar to what the Korath used. There was a crew of about 200, which seemed reasonable for a vessel that size. Then Myrn started going deeper into the architecture and his expression changed. His scales, normally a calm blue, started flickering with orange confusion. "Commander, I'm getting some strange readings here." "Strange how?" Thalen moved closer to Myrn's station, peering at the data streams flowing across the screen. "Well, look at this power distribution system." Myrn highlighted a section of the ship's blueprint. "They have 3 separate power cores. Not one main reactor with backup generators like we use. 3 full fusion reactors. Maybe they need more power for some reason," Thalen suggested. "But that's not all." Myrn pulled up another schematic. "Every single critical system has a backup. Every backup has another backup. The life support can run on 4 different power sources. The navigation computer has 3 independent processing units. Even the gravity generators have redundant systems." Thalen frowned, studying the data. It did seem excessive. Perhaps they're just cautious. "There's more, Commander." Myrn zoomed in on a cross-section of the hull. "Look at their armor plating. It's not one layer. It's 3 separate layers with gaps between them. Each layer is twice as thick as our standard military hull plating." The cold feeling in Thalen's stomach grew stronger. "Show me their internal compartments." Myrn brought up the interior layout. The ship was divided into dozens of sealed sections. Each one could be isolated independently with massive blast doors. Emergency bulkheads could drop at multiple points throughout every corridor. "Why would they build it this way?" Myrn whispered, his voice barely audible. "This design is incredibly inefficient. They're carrying around 3 times the mass they need. The fuel consumption must be enormous." Thalen stared at the holographic display of the human ship, and suddenly everything clicked into place. The redundant systems, the multiple reactors, the excessive armor, the compartmentalized design, the blast doors everywhere. "Because they expect to get hit," Thalen said quietly. "What?" Myrn looked up at him. "They expect damage. They're planning for it." Thalen pointed at the screen. "Those redundant systems aren't inefficient. They're insurance. When one reactor gets destroyed, two more keep running. When the hull gets breached, the compartments seal and the rest of the ship keeps fighting. Mern's scales went pale. But that would mean they expect combat severe enough to destroy primary systems. Exactly. Thalen sat back in his chair, a chill running through his body. This isn't a ship built to avoid damage. It's a ship built to survive it. Mern's fingers hesitated over the control panel. The next section to scan was the medical facilities. Usually this was the most boring part of any ship inspection. A small clinic, some basic supplies, maybe a doctor or two. He almost skipped it to move on to the more interesting weapons systems. But something made him run the scan anyway. The data that came back made no sense. He ran it again, thinking there must be an error in the sensors. "Commander," Mern said, his voice catching. "You need to see this." Thalen was still studying the ship's triple-layered hull design, trying to understand what kind of enemy would require such extreme defensive measures. "What is it?" "Their medical bay." Mern brought the scan results up on the main display. Thalen looked at the hologram and felt his blood run cold. The medical facility took up nearly 1/8 of the entire ship. It was massive. He'd seen Korath research hospitals smaller than this. "That can't be right," Thalen muttered. "Run the scan again." "I already did. Twice." Mern zoomed in on different sections. "Look at this. They have 6 full surgical theaters. Not examination rooms. Full operating theaters with regeneration equipment." The layout appeared on screen. Each surgical theater was equipped with robotic arms, monitoring systems, and enough space for a full medical team to work on multiple patients simultaneously. The rooms were built for speed and efficiency. Why would a military ship need 6 operating rooms? Thalen wondered aloud. Mern pulled up more data. "It gets worse. They have trauma bays set up for mass casualty events. Look at this equipment list." His voice grew quieter as he read. "Burn treatment pods. Dozens of them. Radiation sickness protocols. Decompression injury stations. Emergency amputation kits." Thalen felt sick. The Korath hadn't needed equipment like that for thousands of years. Not since the ancient wars, back before they learned peace. These were tools for treating injuries from the worst kinds of combat imaginable. "There's more," Mern continued, pulling up the medical supply inventory. "They're carrying enough bandages, synthetic blood, and emergency medications for 500 people. But they only have 200 crew members," Thalen said. "Exactly." Mern highlighted the numbers on screen. "They have more than double the medical supplies they should need. Bone regenerators. Neural repair kits. Synthetic organ storage. And look at this, they even have limb replacement parts already fabricated and ready to use." Thalen leaned forward, studying the inventory in disbelief. There were prosthetic arms, legs, hands, feet, all stored in the medical bay's cold storage. Pre-made and waiting. As if the humans knew, absolutely knew, that people would need them. "They're not planning to avoid casualties," Thalen said slowly, the horrifying truth settling over him. "They're planning to survive them. They're planning to treat them and keep fighting." Mern nodded, his scales now a deep orange of fear. "Commander, I've been analyzing their medical protocols. When someone gets injured, they don't evacuate them off the ship. They have a full trauma response team. They stabilize the injured right there, operate on them in those surgical theaters, and then what?" "Then what?" Thalen asked, though he was afraid he already knew the answer. "Then they send them back to duty." Mern pulled up the personnel files they'd scanned. "Look at this. Lieutenant Tyler Ross, Engineering Section. 2 years ago he was caught in an explosion. Severe burns over 40% of his body. The medical notes say he was in critical condition." Thalen watched as Mern brought up a current scan of the ship. There, walking through the engineering section, was Lieutenant Tyler Ross. Alive. Working. Active duty. "He's still here," Thalen whispered. "They saved him and kept him on the ship. It's not just him." Mern pulled up more files. Ensign Brandon Cole, Navigation. Survived a hull breach 3 years ago. Explosive decompression. The medical file says he technically died and they brought him back. He's currently on the bridge running sensors. File after file appeared. Specialist Kevin Wright had a prosthetic hand. Petty Officer Ashley Miller had synthetic vertebrae in her spine from a structural collapse. Lieutenant Nicole Hayes had survived some kind of electrical accident that should have killed her. All of them were still serving. Still on duty. Still ready to fight. "They don't retire their wounded," Mern said quietly. "They fix them. They heal them. They give them new parts if they need to. And then they send them back." Thalen couldn't speak. In Korath society, if someone was seriously injured in an accident, they retired. They lived peaceful lives supported by the community. The idea of sending someone back into danger after they'd already been hurt was unthinkable. But these humans did exactly that. And from the personnel files, it looked like the wounded warriors chose to return. They volunteered to go back. What kind of species does this? Myrn asked, his voice barely a whisper. Thalen stared at the massive medical bay on the display, at all that equipment designed to save lives under the worst possible conditions. The kind that refuses to quit. The kind that looks at death and decides to fight it. The kind that... He trailed off, noticing something else in the medical bay scan. There was a wall of memorial plaques. Names. Hundreds of names. Crew members who hadn't made it, who the medical bay couldn't save. The humans kept them there. A reminder. Not hidden away, but right there in the medical facility where the doctors and nurses would see them every day. They remember they're dead, Thalen said softly. And they keep fighting for them. Myrn's next task was routine biological scans. Usually the dullest part of any ship inspection. You'd see the crew going about their duties, check their basic physiology, confirm they weren't carrying any dangerous pathogens and move on. He expected nothing interesting. What he found instead made him physically recoil from his console. Commander, Myrn's voice shook. The biological readings. They're impossible. Thalen, still processing the nightmare that was the human medical bay, came over to look. What now? Myrn pulled up a skeletal scan of a random crew member. Lieutenant Danny Foster from the engineering deck. Look at his bone density. It's 3 times what it should be for a species their size. Thalen studied the scan carefully. Maybe your equipment is miscalibrated. I checked. Twice. Myrn brought up another crew member. Same results. Then another. And another. They're all like this, Commander. Every single human on that ship has bones dense enough to support them in gravity that would crush you and me into paste. The implications hit Thalen like a physical blow. Their home world must have gravity at least twice what we evolved in, Myrn finished. They literally grew up being pressed down by their own planet. Every step they took as children, they were fighting against forces that would cripple us. Thalen watched the crew members moving through the corridors on the visual feed. They moved with such casual ease, completely unaware that they were walking biological tanks. What else? Myrn pulled up more detailed scans, and his scales flickered through several colors of distress. Their muscle development. Commander, these aren't normal crew members. Every single one of them is in extreme physical condition. Look at this cardiovascular capacity. Their hearts are incredibly powerful. Their lung capacity is enormous. They have endurance that shouldn't be possible. Maybe they just exercise regularly, Thalen suggested weakly. This isn't regular exercise. Myrn highlighted the muscle groups on the display. This is the result of brutal, intensive training. Years of it. They've pushed their bodies to the absolute limit of what their biology can handle. And they maintain it. Thalen felt cold. The Korath kept fit, sure, but nothing like this. These humans had turned themselves into weapons. Myrn continued scanning, moving through the crew roster. Then he stopped, his voice dropping to barely a whisper. Commander, there's something else. Many of them have old injuries. Healed, but visible in the deep scans. He brought up First Officer Ryan Carter's medical history. The scan showed evidence of 4 broken ribs that had healed. Not from one incident, but from multiple injuries over several years. Broken ribs, Myrn said quietly. Any one of those injuries would have hospitalized a Korath for months. He has 4 separate instances. And he's the second in command of a warship. Another crew member appeared on screen. Engineer Valerie Hayes. Look at her lung tissue, Myrn pointed out. Scarring consistent with explosive decompression. She survived vacuum exposure. Do you understand what that means? The vacuum of space touched her and she lived. Thalen couldn't speak. Vacuum exposure was an instant death sentence. Everyone knew that. Apparently everyone was wrong. The scans continued. Weapons Officer Patrick Dalton had a prosthetic leg from the knee down. Advanced cybernetics, fully integrated with his nervous system. He was currently in the Combat Operations Center, running weapons drills. He lost his leg, Myrn said, and they gave him a new one. And he's still in combat rotation. Still on a warship. Still ready to fight. Thalen noticed something in the personnel files. Myrn, pull up their service records. How long have they been in the military? Myrn accessed the data and went silent. They volunteer, Commander. This isn't mandatory service. They choose to join. They choose to serve on warships. Lieutenant Foster has been in service for 12 years. Ryan Carter for 15. They keep signing up, tour after tour. Why? Thalen couldn't understand it. Why would anyone volunteer for this? Myrn pulled up psychological profiles that the scan had captured. The profiles suggest they view it as duty, as protecting their people. They have a concept called honor that seems central to their decision-making. Thalen switched to the visual feed of the bridge. Captain Jessica Brooks stood at the command station, reviewing a tactical display. She moved with confidence and authority, her hands dancing across the controls with practiced ease. Then Thalen noticed her left arm. Myrn zoom in on the captain. The image enhanced. Jessica Brooks' entire left arm from shoulder to fingertips was cybernetic. Not a simple prosthetic but a full military-grade replacement. The kind you got after catastrophic trauma. She lost her arm, Thalen said slowly. She survived whatever took it. They rebuilt her. And she commands the ship. Not just any ship, Myrn added. A warship. She's in charge of 200 people and enough weapons to level a planet. And she's missing her original arm. Thalen watched Jessica work, completely unbothered by her cybernetic limb. She treated it like it was just another part of her body. In her mind it probably was. She'd been broken and they'd fixed her and she'd gone right back to duty. What kind of species sends its wounded back to war? Myrn asked, his voice filled with horror and awe. Thalen thought about everything they'd seen. The ship built to survive catastrophic damage. The medical bay designed for mass casualties. The crew of warriors who'd been hurt and healed and chose to return. The captain with a cybernetic arm still commanding from the bridge. The kind that refuses to quit, Thalen answered finally. The kind that looks at injury and death and says, not today. The kind that gets knocked down and stands back up harder than before. He looked at the human ship on his display floating peacefully in space and felt a chill run through his entire body. They don't retreat. They don't surrender. They don't stop. Myrn had been dreading the weapons scan. After everything else they'd discovered about this human vessel, he wasn't sure he wanted to know what kind of arsenal they carried. But it was protocol. He had to complete it. He initiated the scan and waited for the data to compile. The weapon systems were complex, layered with security protocols and redundant targeting systems. It took longer than usual for the scan to penetrate all the defenses. When the results finally appeared on his screen, Myrn's scales went completely pale. The color drained from his face until he looked almost white. "Commander," he managed to say, his voice barely a whisper. Thalen looked up from the crew manifest he'd been studying. "What is it?" "The weapons." Myrn couldn't take his eyes off the display. "This single ship carries enough firepower to destroy our entire station. And the 3 planets behind us. And probably the moon orbiting the second planet." Thalen rushed over to the weapons station. The holographic display showed the human ship's armaments in terrifying detail. "That's impossible. A ship this size can't carry that much." "But they do." Myrn pulled up the weapon systems one by one. Rail guns along the dorsal spine. Not 1 or 2. 12 of them. They fire solid projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed. Each shot carries kinetic energy equivalent to a small fusion bomb. Thalen stared at the specifications. A single railgun would be a powerful weapon. 12 of them could tear through any ship in the Korath fleet like paper. "There's more," Myrn continued, his voice shaking. "Plasma batteries on the port and starboard sides. They superheat matter into plasma and launch it in contained magnetic fields. The temperature readings suggest these weapons can melt through our strongest battle armor in seconds." "How many?" Thalen asked, though he was afraid to know. 24 plasma cannons. Covering every angle of approach. Thalen felt dizzy. The weapons just kept coming. "What else?" Myrn pulled up another section. "Fusion warheads. They call them missiles. Guided weapons that use nuclear fusion as the detonation mechanism. Commander, they have 60 of these aboard. Each one capable of sterilizing everything within a 5-kilometer radius." 60 fusion warheads, Thalen repeated numbly. "They carry nuclear weapons as standard ammunition. And that's not the worst part." Myrn highlighted another weapons system, one he didn't even recognize at first. "These are called relativistic kill vehicles. They're projectiles designed to be fired at near light speed. When something traveling that fast hits a target, it releases energy equivalent to multiple fusion bombs. The shockwave alone would shatter anything in orbit." Thalen sat down heavily. This wasn't a warship. This was a floating apocalypse. "Their defensive systems are just as advanced," Myrn added. point defense lasers, electromagnetic countermeasures, missile interceptors. They have defensive protocols for 63 different types of weapons. 63. Thalen looked up sharply. We've only encountered 12 different weapon types in our entire recorded history. I know. Mern pulled up the countermeasure database. They have defenses against weapons we've never seen. Particle beams. Antimatter torpedoes. Something called a gravity well generator. Commander, they've either faced enemies we can't imagine, or they've invented horrors we've never thought of. The reality settled over them like a heavy blanket. This human ship, alone, could probably conquer the entire Korath Confederation if it wanted to. And according to Captain Brooks, this was just a patrol cruiser. A standard warship. Thalen leaned back trying to process everything. Then something caught his eye on one of the internal scans. Mern, what's that section there? Below the crew quarters? Mern zoomed in. That's a recreation area, I think. They examined it more closely. The scan revealed something completely unexpected. Personal items. Everywhere. Music files stored in the ship's database, thousands of songs from different eras and styles. Photographs on the walls of crew quarters. Children, families, pets, landscapes from Earth. In the common area there was a physical library. Actual books made of paper, carefully preserved in climate-controlled cases. Literature, poetry, history, philosophy. Hundreds of volumes. Lieutenant Owen Harper had a guitar in his quarters. Engineering specialist Diane Foster had painted a picture of a sunset and hung it above her bunk. Weapons technician Craig Miller kept photographs of his family arranged carefully on his desk. They bring their culture with them, Thalen said softly. Into war. Into danger. They carry what they love. Mern pulled up more interior scans. The mess hall had decorations from various human celebrations. The rec room had games, art supplies, musical instruments. These warriors, these walking weapons who carried enough firepower to destroy solar systems, also carried the things that made them human. Then Thalen saw it. Engraved into the wall near the bridge entrance, in letters large enough to see from across the corridor, was a phrase in human writing. The translation appeared on his screen. We hold the line. 4 simple words. A motto. A promise. A declaration. It's not just a warship, Thalen said quietly, understanding flooding through him. It's a promise. Everything on this ship, the weapons, the armor, the medical bay, the wounded warriors who come back, the culture they carry with them. It's all saying the same thing. What? Mern asked. We will protect what we love, Thalen said. We will fight for it. We will die for it if we must. But we will hold the line. We will not let evil pass. This ship isn't just a weapon. It's humanity saying not one step further. Mern looked at the data one more time, at the impossible firepower in the photographs and the books and the motto on the wall. They're terrifying, he whispered. Yes, Thalen agreed. And I'm very glad they're not our enemy. Thalen stared at his display for a long time after completing the weapons scan. Everything they'd discovered about the human ship weighed on him like a physical burden. The impossible armor. The massive medical bay. The wounded warriors who came back to fight. The weapons that could crack planets. And through it all, the culture they carried, the love they protected. He needed to understand. He needed to know. Open a channel to the Resolute, Thalen ordered. Direct line to Captain Brooks. Mern looked at him with concern. Commander, are you sure that's wise? I need answers. Thalen's voice was firm. Open the channel. A moment later, Captain Jessica Brooks appeared on the main display. She sat in her command chair, looking relaxed and professional. Her cybernetic arm rested casually on the armrest, the metallic fingers moving with the same natural ease as her organic hand. Commander Thalen, she greeted him with a slight smile. I trust the scan went well? It did, Captain. Thalen chose his words carefully. Actually, that's why I wanted to speak with you. Forgive my directness, but I need to ask you something. Go ahead. Jessica leaned forward slightly, giving him her full attention. Who are you fighting? The question came out more bluntly than Thalen intended. We've scanned your region of space extensively. We've detected no hostile species near Earth. No rival empires. No invasion fleets. Nothing that would require a ship like yours. Jessica's smile changed. It became something else. Something that made Thalen's survival instincts scream even through the safety of the communication channel. It was the smile of a predator, something that had teeth and knew how to use them. Right now, Commander? Jessica said calmly. Nobody. We're at peace. The words hung in the air like a suspended blade. Thalen felt his world tilt. This is peacetime? His voice came out as a stammer. That ship, all those weapons, the medical facilities designed for mass casualties, the warriors who've been wounded and healed. That's what you maintain during peace. This is our standard patrol cruiser, Jessica confirmed, her tone matter-of-fact, as if she was discussing something completely ordinary. Medium-range operations. Border security. Showing the flag in friendly territory. Standard stuff. Myrn made a choking sound from his station. Thalen couldn't blame him. We have bigger ships in dock, Jessica added casually. Dreadnoughts. Carriers. The Resolute is actually on the smaller end of our military vessels. Thalen's voice shook when he managed to speak again. Captain Brooks, what do you do during wartime? If this is your peacetime capability, what happens when you're actually at war? Jessica's expression changed. The predatory smile faded, replaced by something darker, something that carried the weight of history and memory. She was quiet for a moment, seeming to consider her words carefully. Let me show you something, Commander. Her fingers moved across her command console. I'm transmitting some historical files from Earth. With your permission. Go ahead, Thalen said, though part of him didn't want to see. The data arrived and Myrn began displaying it on the main screen. Images appeared. Human cities in flames. Massive explosions that rose into mushroom-shaped clouds. Battlefields littered with bodies. Weapons that split atoms and released the power of stars. Wars that consumed entire continents. The numbers scrolled past. Millions dead. Tens of millions. A war that killed more humans in 6 years than the entire population of some Korath colonies. And then another war decades later that nearly ended their entire species. We call these the World Wars, Jessica said quietly, her voice carrying a weight that Thalen had never heard before. Followed by what we named the Cold War, where we pointed weapons at ourselves that could have rendered our entire planet uninhabitable. We stood on the edge of extinction for decades. Thalen couldn't speak. He watched the images, the devastation, the horror of a species at war with itself. We've already fought the worst enemy we'll ever face, Commander, Jessica continued. Ourselves. We built weapons designed to kill other humans. We created strategies to destroy human cities. We learned every possible way to hurt, maim, and kill our own kind. And we did it. We used those weapons. We fought those wars. She paused, her cybernetic hand clenching slightly on the armrest. But we survived it. We learned from it. We grew past it. We looked at the ashes of our world and decided never again would we destroy ourselves. We turned all that knowledge, all that capacity for violence, all those hard-learned lessons outward. Jessica's eyes locked onto Thalen's through the display. Anyone who attacks humanity now faces warriors who were forged in that fire. We know war in ways most species can't imagine. We've seen it. We've lived it. We've died in it and come back. The Resolute and ships like it aren't meant to start wars, Commander. They're meant to end them. Quickly. Decisively. Before they can grow into something worse. Thalen finally understood. The scan. The willingness to show everything. It wasn't cooperation. It was a warning. A message sent clearly and deliberately. This is what we are. This is what we carry. This is what we're willing to do. See it. Know it. Remember it. The Korath Confederation wishes to propose an alliance, Thalen said immediately, the words coming out in a rush. A formal treaty. Trade agreements. Cultural exchange. Mutual defense if you're willing. Jessica's smile returned, warm and genuine this time. Smart choice, Commander. We'd be happy to discuss terms. Humanity values its friends very highly. And your enemies? Thalen had to ask. Jessica's smile didn't waver, but her eyes grew cold. We don't have many of those left. The communication ended. The Resolute powered up its engines, preparing to continue its patrol. Thalen watched it go, that floating promise moving through the stars. Warriors who refused to quit, carrying their culture and their weapons, ready to hold the line against whatever darkness might come. Humanity would never stop fighting for what it loved. And now, Thalen was very grateful that the Korath were on the right side of that promise.